Today's video, it's all about molten metal filtration. So what we've got here, it's a ceramic filter that's got all holes through it. It's just like the oil filter in your car. It will filter out the dirt and dross that's in your metal. To try this filter out, I'm going to use my crankshaft pattern, and you'll notice there's a bit of difference there. The last time I used it and machined it, it came out undersized, so I just slipped in some PVC conduit over it, so now it's got plenty of machining allowance. I have used the filters once before, and what happened, the metal was just a little bit cold, and the inevitable happened, it passed through the filter and froze. So I had a lot of problems there. I've never used them since, and that was about 20 years ago. So for this time round, I'm going to do it a little bit differently, and I'll show you. This is the plan, how I intend to use these filters. This is the pattern. It leaves the cavity for the filter to sit inside, and this distance from here to here is the height of my box. Now I'm not sure what's going to happen. Filters naturally restrict flow of fluids, so I'm not sure if it's going to back up too much up this part here. So that's what this is for. This is to make sure if it does back up, at least I've got some height of metal to push it through. I don't know. I haven't tried this for a long time, so we'll see what happens. For this experiment, I normally use a thin sprue, but with this one here I'm using a very thick sprue, and the reason is it's got a large surface area on the bottom of it, so if one part clogs up, it's still got some other area to flow through. So if you have never seen a filter like this before, these edges here all around, because it's made out of a ceramic, it's very rough. So what happens is I've made a pattern that's slightly larger, but I know what's going to happen. When I drop that in, it'll rub on the sides and loosen some sand. So the idea is this is going to sit in the cope, and from here, this is the bottom, this will be the drag. You have an area around here where it's going to support the filter, but also if the sand drops in there, it's got to pass through the filter, because the filter is going to jam that in there and the sand can't go through into your mould. Well, that turned out okay. It wasn't the disaster I thought it would be. With using filters, I thought it was going to back up a fair bit. That did not seem to be a problem. There's the other mould, the second mould poured. Okay, this is the first crankshaft I poured with the filters, and we'll have a quick look at it. There's the filter, and there's my crazy gating. So far the casting looks okay, so we'll just knock it out. Alright, there's the filter, still in place. Yeah, the iron was fluid. See how it's sort of coming up in between the gaps. I left a fair bit of a gap on there. I'm glad that part worked. Here is a side view of the filter, and this distance from here to the top of the box, it's about 47-48 millimeters. So my fear of it backing up was unfounded, and as you can see, that height from there to there was plenty to force the metal through. And as you can see, it didn't even build up till it filled up into mould. But once it did fill up, it started to squeeze out in various places in the side, because it's a little bit larger, and through all these holes, and it worked really well. And here's a view from the top. Can you see the square shaped sprue? It's got a maximum amount of surface area. But what's amazing about it is you'll see just there, everywhere around, the metal started oozing out. Once it got up to this pressure here, forced its way through into the back, just about everywhere there. So my fear of those filters not working or blocking up were totally unfounded, and they work quite well. I was surprised. And now we've got the overall view. We've got the crankshaft, the filter. So what I've made up here, it was one gate coming out from the bottom. You can see it just there, it ends, and it runs into two runners. So it did give a very clean casting. It did its job and worked well. And this is the bottom view. Now you can see where the metal has penetrated through virtually everywhere, and how I've cut this part out here so it has a fairly maximum area so the metal can flow through the filter. But unfortunately this part here is sort of wasted. But as you can see, it worked really well. The casting surface is very clean, and if you have problems pouring dirty metals like brass or some bronzes, filters might be the way to go. But the unfortunate thing about this is with these filters, well, I went to a foundry auction and someone bought a large amount of them, so I was lucky and I was able to buy a small amount off that person after the auction. But I've never been able to find out where you actually get them from. So that's one thing I can't say to you, where do you get these filters from? But I can say that they do work